Hello and welcome to the FSF podcast. I am Tim. I am your host. And then I want to remind you that this is the show that is made by nerds for nerds. So welcome to our nerdery. Now, our guest today is a very talented actor, producer, and podcaster. And I'm hoping that she's also very forgiving because I stole this biography like straight from her IMDb page because it was better written than anything I was going to put together. So, but she is known for compelling performances on stage and screen. She was born in Colombia and raised in Queens, New York, and she has a passion for storytelling. You've seen her in shows like Ray Donovan, Superma, and most recently, a movie called The Low End Theory. I am very excited to welcome Sofia Yepes to the show today. Welcome to the show, Sofia.
Hi, Tim. Thank you.
I am glad to have you here. So when I was introduced to you, by your agent, I was like, oh, okay, she's been on a couple things I've actually seen. I loved Ray Donovan. That was a good series. And I was like, oh, cool. So I'm excited to have you on today, and we'll have a chance to sit down and talk a little bit. Now, one of the things I always love to start with every single guest, because as I said in the introduction, we are nerds, and nerds love a good origin story of their heroes. And you are the hero of today's story. So in the origin of Sofia Yepes, what got you here today? How did you become the person you are?
Oh my goodness. How far does the origin stories go? How far back?
I have had some people talk about being born in a van down by the river, and then
My God. Let's see. Well, I was born in Colombia, and I was born in Colombia, and my parents brought me as a little itty baby to Queens, New York. I was 3 months old, and I was raised in New York mostly until one day I went to Colombia on vacation by myself, which was like a common thing we did. I would go with family and stuff like that. My parents stayed in New York, and the day before I was supposed to come back home, they said, "Unpack your bags. You're staying in Colombia." And we're all moving to Colombia. All my parents were moving to Colombia. Yeah, and that was the start of living in Colombia. It was my junior high school. I had just finished sixth grade, going into seventh grade. Didn't have a chance to say goodbye to my friends. Didn't have a chance to say goodbye to my home. Nothing. Just started living in Colombia. I went from a co-ed public school in a neighborhood who was not super duper fancy, to a all-girl nun-preparatory school. So it was quite the difference.
I bet.
In Spanish, right? And a lot changed for me during that time. I went from being the very, very good girl who listened to everything, top student, to being someone who was very rebellious and decided, I'm not going to listen to anybody, and you can't even try to tell me what to do, because even when you do, I do the other thing just because.
Fair. Okay.
I think that really sparked something in me. That sparked, it started as a rebellion, but it also sparked me listening to myself and me allowing myself to explore things that I wouldn't have explored before, because everything was very boxed in, and I was following the rules of the box, And so eventually I made it back to New York, and I started, after college and stuff, I started feeling all that box happening again. And I was like engaged. I was, about to do the whole getting the house with the husband and plan the family thing. And I kind of lost it. And I was like, you know what? I always wanted to be an actress. I said I was going to be an actress. I said I was going to move to LA. I broke off my engagement and I bought a one-way ticket. And here I am.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's a major dedication, though. The one-way ticket. That's banking on yourself.
Oh yeah. I had to. That's the only way to do it.
Well, no, I don't disagree with you. I just a lot of people don't have that inner drive to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to bet on myself so deeply that I'm going to just, you cut some pretty major ties and did a big jump. That's wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe the whole experience of like when I moved to Colombia that I had done that already before,
Sure.
and I didn't die. And so and so I'm
Bonus.
I'm older now, so if I'm closer to dying, I'll know what to do more, I guess. And I also have to say I've had an incredible support circle. Like, when
Okay.
I told my dad's like, I thought you were never gonna do this. Let's go. What do I need to do? How can I help you? You know?
That's cool.
Yeah. I had friends that were very supportive and pushed me along the way. So yeah.
That's very cool. I love hearing stories about that where people A, bet on themselves so heavily, but B, have that support system behind them that's saying, no, 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 don't worry about falling back because we're here, we got you, we're going to push you forward. I like that. That's very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. So that's a cool origin story. I like that. Now, um, I'll make the assumption that you were raised in a bilingual household then.
Yes.
And so when you moved to Colombia, it wasn't that big of a culture shock for you because I'm assuming you were already speaking the language and able to, interact.
Yeah, we actually weren't allowed to speak English at home at all.
Oh
We would
wow,
get,
okay.
yeah, it was like none of us, none of my cousins, all the cousins that I grew up with, we would all get in trouble if we spoke English at home. Even when we were together, our parents all worked together to make sure nobody spoke English at home, which was kind of amazing. So I thankfully arrived in Colombia knowing how to read, write, and speak fluent Spanish. Um,
Perfect. Okay.
However, their school system, education system is pretty advanced. And so I arrived there, I was supposed to start seventh grade, but their seventh grade is kind of like our eighth, ninth grade in terms of like what they're learning. So I was
Oh
pretty
wow.
behind. I had to go to school Saturdays and I was up doing homework till like 1 a.m. trying to catch up.
Wow. Okay.
Hmm.
Very cool. All
Yeah.
right. All right. So I mentioned at the end of the introduction that you have a newer show out called The Low End Theory. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping that you'll take a few moments and regale us all about the low end theory, your character, what the movie's about, and why everyone should be watching this.
Oh, um, it's actually a film, and it is a neo-noir thriller. And let's see, the Low End Theory is about this woman who really, 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 really wants to be a music producer. That's like her goal, her dream. She also happens to be a military vet, and she is in a relationship, but meets this singer who is not her girlfriend. She meets the singer and she falls madly, deeply in love with her. And she's like, this is it, right? This is my person. And while she's becoming a music producer, she's also working for a drug lord. She's smurfing for him, which means to like she's making the deposits of the money and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And she finds out that this woman she fell in love with, her name is Veronica, owes money to some pretty serious people. And Raquel, which is my character, decides to steal from her boss, her drug lord boss, to pay the debts of this woman. And she kind of tangles herself up in a pretty messy web. And yeah, I mean, I play Raquel, and she's this woman who she's suffering from PTSD, and not from the PTSD of like war being in combat, but PTSD from
Okay.
being violated. Um, and she's constantly trying to like redeem herself. She has like flashbacks, and she's trying to find herself as the hero. She's trying to be the hero for herself that she wasn't when she got violated. And so she's suffering. She's depressed, and she finds herself an opportunity to be the hero for somebody else, and she takes that opportunity.
Okay.
Is yeah.
All right. Fantastic. So, uh, you know, something I am sure you had no way of knowing, but I actually had PTSD, or I still have PTSD just to some degrees. And it's something, and I'm always kind of interested in storylines that actually talk about those type of things and how they handle it, because I think I found, personally, anyway, I think that Hollywood in general has had a kind of a come to Jesus moment when it comes to mental health and the way that it's pictured and treated and things in cinematography and how it's viewed and how it's portrayed. Is that something you would agree with, that it's portrayed in a more positive way, or at least in a maybe not even or more realistic way?
I think that we're opening up our eyes to how many different things PTSD can actually be.
Right.
I know that for a long time, I only knew of PTSD as somebody who suffered the combat PTSD,
Sure. Absolutely.
but it actually can happen in all kinds of ways. I had some PTSD after an abusive relationship as well,
Okay.
and I do think that it is important to have like different types of narratives around it, just for awareness purposes. The same goes with like representation. Like, it's
Yeah.
important to have different kinds of representation because not every single story of a Latino is the same story.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think I think that while there are more creatives that are talking more about it, because people are also more open to mental health in general, like talking about mental
Hmm.
health. So I like to think so. I like to think that it's something that we are creating more awareness around, yeah, and are speaking about it in an honest, truthful manner for sure.
Okay. Yeah. See, for me, I'm not a combat veteran. I've never experienced anything along those lines. Mine is actually resulted from my daughter back in 2019 was hospitalized for just under 100 days, and so she has a continuous medical condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome, and we were in the hospital with her. I was at the hospital physically for 95 of the 97 days,
Wow.
and so during that time, there's lots of sights and sounds that you see as a parent of a chronically ill child and as a hospitalized child, and there were things that I didn't understand what was happening to me. So I remember sitting down with a therapist finally, and when we were talking about it, they're like, well, you have hospitalization PTSD. And I was like, yeah, that's not a thing. That's
Wow.
not a thing.
Wow. And can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
How, after identifying it, did it help you like deal with it in a way? Did it kind of calm down in
Yeah,
you?
actually. Well, it wasn't that it helped me identify what the things were that would trigger me, and
Right.
things that were, um, because, and it's not like I would fly off on some wild tangent or anything along those lines, but um, it would just, yeah, there were some certain things that would happen, and it would trigger panic attacks, and I would just like lock up and seize up and couldn't move. And so it helped me to identify what some of those things were. So there were some practical tools that my therapist helped me to learn so that I could work through them. You know, one of the things that, and what I still struggle with this to some degree, is things that beep.
Yeah,
So like
because of the
like
machine.
because the machines are constantly beeping in the room. So with it, things that are beeping, like my phone is always on silent because I just don't like the beeping, the texting noise, and all those things. It reminds me of things I don't want to remember.
Mhm.
Uh, but anyway, so it was a combination of being able to identify it, humanize it, and then find things, tools that were going to be able to help me to be able to navigate through it and past it. So I don't think that it's something that you're ever going to be able to get fully, get rid of. I think it's going to stick around, and it shows up at weird times.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always like when you with the this would be the worst time for it to show up. Oh, hello, my old friend. There
Long
you are.
long time no see.
Exactly. Right on cue.
Let's give you a
Uh,
quick breakdown real fast. Just real fast.
exactly. So I think that I really do think that, um, but identifying it is a major step in acceptance of the fact. So you have to identify it, you have to accept it, and then you have to learn how to work through it. If you can do those three things, you're probably going to be successful at navigating your future with it.
Absolutely.
The problem is that people don't usually get past the first two. Well, because once it gets identified, they'll go to the step of identification, but usually it's the second step of accepting it and learning that this is definitely something you have and something you definitely need to work with and through, that it becomes a problem.
I totally agree with you. Thank you for sharing that with me, by the way.
Yeah, no problem.
I as far as Raquel, I think that she's stuck in step number 2. Like she understands, and
Okay.
she's a therapist, and I think she's accepted it, by
Right.
creating another narrative, right? But
Sure.
hasn't actually accepted it. And I agree with you. I think that's one of the hardest parts for sure, to be able to just be like, okay, cool. This is just what it is,
All right. Well, excellent. So we'll look forward to seeing that. The Low End Theory,
Yeah.
starring Sofia Yepes. Go check it out, guys.
Yes,
All right.
please.
Now, one of the other things when I was doing and I like to call this, technically it's cyber stalking, but we like to call it research. The lovely, the lovely bow of research. So, it really wasn't that much cyber stalking involved because IMDb was like, she's a podcaster. So I was like, all right, let's go find out what her podcast is. So, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this horribly, but is it Sana Single Mama?
Yeah, that's good. You got it.
Yay, me look at that. Okay. All right. Yay. Okay. So talk to me about your podcast. Tell me about what was the impetus behind getting started in your podcast, and what do you focus on?
Oh, I can tell you an origin story there.
Yeah, please. I'm all ears.
So my podcast, like the concept, the idea of even having a podcast, came from when I became pregnant,
Okay.
and I realized there's so much stuff that happens to us that I had no idea, and I felt like I was duped into pregnancy. Like I was like, you grow up and they're like, oh my God, babies, yay, what a blessing, it's wonderful. And then once you're pregnant, you find out all the stuff that's not so wonderful and all that. And I was like, this is so messed up. I have to tell everybody like what actually goes down. You need to
Right.
know what you're getting yourself into as a woman. And I never did it. And shortly thereafter, I separated from my son's father.
Okay.
And that was a big thing for me, very, very traumatic for me. And I was like, you know what? I need to talk about this too. I felt very alone. And I have to rephrase that. I had a lot of support. I had a lot of love, but I don't think anyone in my circle really understood what I was doing, and I just wanted to talk, and I was pretty angry. So I started a podcast called As a Mother. So as a New Yorker, right? We got a little bit of attitude and we say things in a certain way. So when we talk about being a mother, we say things are hard like a mother. And it kind of like evolved into this like rant podcast type of thing about, single motherhood and how difficult it is. And as time went on, I realized I got to get out of this vicious cycle of rage. And I started healing, and I realized, the community that I really wanted to build is a community of healing of single mamas,
Sure.
And the reason why it's called Sana Sana is because there is a kind of like a lullaby type of thing that we sing to kids in Spanish. And you go, sana, sana, culito de rana, si no sana hoy, sanará mañana. And you're basically just telling the kid, heal, you're going to be okay. And everyone knows it. You ask any Latino and you say, what does sana sana mean? And they'll tell you, they know what it means. But essentially, it's a community of healing single moms and like just being there for one another, allowing everything to that's happening to be okay, and just not feeling so alone, helping each other thrive.
I think that's fantastic. That's
Thanks.
awesome. Well, you
Yeah.
have my respect. My mom was a single mother till I was almost 11, 10, somewhere between 10 and 11.
Oh, go get
Somewhere
her.
in, so somewhere in that area. So she was trying to raise myself and my brother, and so
Wow.
I have the utmost respect for anybody who takes that job. That's not an easy job.
Not at
So
all, but it's actually been beautiful. And I think that, especially with
sure.
this podcast, it's been something that I love the idea of sharing this with other single mamas. And,
Hmm.
I love being able to share like the great stuff and the things that I've
Yeah.
learned. I'm sure I don't know if your mom had a community of single moms or moms that she could, you know,
Not at that time. No, no.
yeah, I think support plays a really big role in our lives, and tribes,
Hmm.
was a big thing, and I think we've lost that a little bit, in modern
Oh, for
times.
sure. We're a much more digitally divided world than we ever were in the past. You
Totally,
know. Yeah.
totally.
I mean, we had friends when I was growing up. We had a circle of friends that we hung out with, but they were all married couples, and because my mom was trying very hard to make sure that there was a positive male influence in my
Mhm.
brother and I's life, because my natural father was an abusive alcoholic. So she was trying to make sure that A, we didn't grow up like that, and B, that we didn't see that was like the only way we could go. So she was trying to find these other men who were in these married couples who were great examples, and they were. My mom picked really good people for us to be around, and they were stellar examples, and we're still close to many of them today.
Oh, that's
Um,
beautiful.
like one of them I still call uncle. We are nowhere near family, but he's probably closer to me than much of my family.
That's
So
amazing. Sounds like your mom killed it.
she
You know,
did. She's pretty awesome. I like her.
that's
I'll keep her. Uh,
all we can ask for, I guess, at the end of the day, right?
hey, I'm a father to three, and at the end of the day, if they'll claim me, I'm calling it a win. So
Absolutely,
uh,
absolutely. Blessing.
you mean to tell me I didn't embarrass you so much that you walked away? Crushing it.
Let's
Trust
go.
me, and trust me, I try.
You do?
It's one of my
Well,
life goals.
like, I'm gonna Miles Morales like the dad thing on you, like I'm gonna take the speakerphone, make you say I love you in front of all your friends.
That's awesome. Love it. Love it. So you had talked about how you had moved past this feeling of anger, and you had to start healing. Now, personally, at the time when I was going through my PTSD and everything, I was my first podcast was called Focused on Forward, where I was talking to people who had gone through some stuff in life, whether it was abuse or medical issues or whatever it may have been. But I wasn't focusing on that. I was talking about because I was working on trying to get through my stuff. So I was using this as the cheapest form of therapy, and talking to people who had moved forward in their life and were focused on that. Did you find for yourself, because I'm always curious with people who have that type of podcast, or podcast similar to something like yours, where it morphed from this to this. Did you find that you were getting the help you needed and some of the guidance that you needed by hearing the stories of others?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, I think that it's healing and just connecting, just being able to say, "Oh, wow, you felt that way too." That's
Yeah,
healing. So absolutely, I also felt a little bit of a responsibility to be more dedicated to healing that way, because it wasn't just me. It was like, okay, now we've got two, then we got three, now we got four, and now it's like we're holding each other accountable, so to speak. So
right.
it helped me dedicate more of my time to healing. And I say it that way because as a single parent, time is very difficult to find for yourself. And in order to heal, you have to be able to carve some time out for yourself.
Sure.
So, it just became a thing that you had to do. You had to find a way. And whether it's like staying up an extra hour after the kiddo falls asleep, or getting up an extra hour before to find some time to meditate, or things like that. And in hearing people's stories, I would get little bits of like, oh, okay, I could do that. That's something I can do.
Yeah.
So I think Absolutely. Did you find it a little bit healing? I
Very
so
much so. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because even though, like, they weren't dealing with the same things I was dealing with, um, I had found some of the best suggestions were from people that had situations that were nowhere near mine.
Mm.
And, but they were doing certain things in their life. And I was like, and I was doing the same thing. I was taking notes during the interviews, just for, because if there was something that I wanted to try later, because I'm like, yeah, I know I'm going to go back and I'm going to hear this again when I edit it. Right. I
Mhm.
have to hear it again at some point.
Mhm.
But I had paper and pen there with me. It's just sitting right beside me, so that if there was something that popped up, I would write down the time marker of,
Mhm.
25:15, whatever it was, try this thing, read this book,
Mm.
try this exercise, whatever it was, so that I could remember to go do it. And I found that after a while that it didn't matter, because at first I was like, well, they haven't been through what I've been through. They don't know what. And I had to take that wall down,
Mhm.
that, and then realize that there was helpful advice on the other side of the wall,
Mhm.
that I was ignoring. And it
Mm.
didn't matter where it came from. Good advice is good advice. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That's what yeah, community. Community is so important.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's dive into that topic of community. You set me up so good with the segue. I was trying
Ooh.
to figure out how I was going to do this, but you nailed it right there. Bam. All right. So, talking about community, this also comes from your IMDb page, because I'm a thief, but I acknowledge it, so I don't think that makes it as bad. All right. So it says in your IMDb page that Sofia strives to tell stories from the female, Latina, Indigenous, Afro Latina perspective and empower women in both front and behind the camera. So this is a two-part question.
Okay.
Because we were talking about community. Why is that so important to you? Both the storytelling perspective and community, and
Mhm.
how are you going about making this happen?
Okay. So in terms of the community, uh I may say something here that some of my Latino buds may not like, but we have been very divided. The Latino communities at large have been very divided for many, 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 many generations. And for me, it is my greatest purpose to bring solidarity amongst us. I really feel that like we can be our most powerful and our most inspirational, our most everything, all the good stuff, when we work together, because we have greatness in our differences, right? Um, so that's the community part for me, and then the storytelling part. We have so many different kinds of stories. I mean, I think for a
Yeah,
very long time we were talking about representation. As a Latina woman, it was scarce out there unless you wanted to be a maid or a chola, or I come
sure.
from New York and I came to LA, and for me to find a role that fit me was very, very difficult. I don't fit the chola criteria. I didn't have the accent until I learned it because I had to, you know. So it was important for me to create stories that were different. We had to create, there's my, like, I am an indigenous Afro Latina, and so my story is completely different than the one from East LA, and I
Oh, for
love
sure.
that
Yeah,
story. But I also got some cool stories too from New York, right? And I think that that's kind of the beauty and the magic about storytelling, is like we get to live or learn about all these different kinds of people. So how am I making it happen? I'm creating them. I'm not waiting for them to come to me. I'm just deciding, I'm gonna make it myself. I did the low end theory. The low end theory was something that I went up to a good friend, writer director, and I said, "Hey, I respect you. I think you're crazy talented. I think I'm pretty talented, and I think we could do something really great." And he believed in me, and I believed in him, and here we are, many, many years later, with a pretty great film, I would say. So check it out.
perfect. Yeah.
Um, and I think that's it. I think that we're in a place where it is a little bit more accessible to create our own stories, and we have so much information. If you don't know how, you can look it up. and there are a lot of great resources out there. So for me, it's like, I'm just going to make it. I'm going to make the thing that I can't find.
I love that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love that. I think, I've always been a big supporter of representation and making sure that there's. I love the video of a couple years back of the little girl watching I think it was the trailer for The Little Mermaid. And there was this black woman as Little Mermaid, and the little black girl sitting there on the floor, and she looks up at her mama and she says, "Mama, she looks like me." And I'm like, and melt. I was done.
I mean, chills, tears, everything.
And I was like, if that doesn't convince you right there that representation is important, I really don't know what could. I mean, that little girl was just as perfect and as beautifully innocent as possible.
Absolutely.
There wasn't a political vein in her body. That was just the embodiment of happiness to see, Mama, she looks like me. And I'm like, oh. So,
and a dream is born, I mean, like, growing up, I didn't see people like me, and I didn't think I could do this. I didn't think acting was a real job.
Sure.
I was like, oh,
sure.
You're just born Julia Roberts. That's how it works,
right? You show up. Where's my script? Where's my money? Put it in the account.
Like, all right. I'm in Hollywood. Sorry, I had no clue that you could pursue this.
Right.
And when I saw Rosie Perez, I was like, oh, how'd she get there?
Yeah.
In A White Man Can't Jump. I don't know if you remember that film, but
I remember that movie very well. Love
but
that movie.
So that's, I think, super important. Absolutely. I love that you brought that up.
Awesome. All right. So one of the things I've been doing recently on interviews, and I've really been enjoying this because I started something. I belonged on Facebook. I belong to a group, and we have this chat group going, and we all in the chat group started this thing called the 1001 Day Album Generator, and it gives you an album every day to listen to.
Okay.
And it's really, really cool. And I've enjoyed it very much. Not just for the music that it's given me, but seeing the music that it's given my friends and how they're responding to the music and what the artists that they're learning about. The last couple of days haven't been that good, but we're not going to talk about that. So they've been a little trialsome for me. But so here's my question. I'm looking for suggestions. What are you reading or listening to that everyone else should know about?
Oh my God, so personal. As a matter of fact, I am reading Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano. And it's a pretty intense book about how the lands of Latin America have been exploited. So really fun, easy read. That's what I'm reading right now. And I'm also reading When I Dared to Be Powerful by Audre Lorde.
Nice. Okay.
That's what I'm reading. And what am I listening to? I have gotten into, I think this would fall under the not so good category for most people. I'm very like I got into like music about the earth.
Okay.
Just realizing how like I sound. So it's like worshiping, like not worshiping, but like being grateful for like the winds and the trees and
enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah, it puts me in a really good mood.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's what I'm listening to. I guess one artist that is pretty popular is called Peia, Peia. Beautiful voice. I mean, just incredible voice, and she has all these beautiful songs about Mother Earth.
Perfect. I'll check it out.
Oh, please let me know.
I'm not kidding.
Curious.
No, I'm not kidding. I will check it out. I do look into all the suggestions that people give me because I have a very eclectic music taste. So I love a little bit of everything.
Awesome. I hope you enjoy it. It's a very good. You feel nice around it.
All right, perfect. All right, Sophia, it's time for our silly question. Now, if my co-host Kathleen was here, she could help me introduce this because her and her daughter were out for a walk somewhere. I think it was at a mall or a store or something. I don't remember the base of the story. I just remember that they were out and about. So we'll just say Kathleen and her daughter were out and about. And somebody asked her daughter this question, but not her. And Kathleen was like, well, that's rude. You should always be asked this question. You shouldn't age out of this question. And that question is, Sofia Yepes, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh my gosh. Oh, so easy. The Triceratops.
We have a winner, ladies and gentlemen. All right. That's my favorite as well.
Oh, amazing. He's the best.
Yeah, exactly. When I was a kid, and anybody who's listened to any of our other recordings, you've already heard this story. Don't fade out. Just stick around for 30 seconds. Yeah. When I was a kid, I loved rhinos. I thought rhinos were cool. I'm like, they're modern dinosaurs. There's these tanks with these big horns on the front of their heads. And then I found out about the Triceratops, and I'm like, holy crap, it's a triple rhino. And I was just, so I still think rhinos are very, very cool. And I'm very, very afraid of them. And as you should be, because they're a large, magnificent animal that could kill you with one swing of their nose. And so anyway, yeah.
Oh, great question.
All right.
Thank you for that. And you're right. You shouldn't age out of any question.
Exactly, right? All right. Okay, Sofia, thank you so much for being on the FSF podcast today. Where can people go to find out more about you, your work, and anything else you've got coming up?
Thank you so much for having me, Tim. This was so lovely. You can find me on the socials. I'm at Sofia with an F, Sofia J Yepes, Yepes. It's my name with a J in the middle. And I'm on all the socials. And also you can find us at the Low End Theory Movie. And yeah, please check out the film if you have a chance. It's on In the Black Network, intheblack.tv. We're on the opening page. And yeah, check it out. If you like some neo-noir thriller, it'll be fun.
Very, very cool. We'll put links for those down in the show notes down below so everybody gets a chance to check those out. Now, guys, if you're not already following the FSF podcast here on YouTube, that's the most important thing you should be doing right now is clicking that follow button, because that helps us to get more amazing guests like Sofia here today to have these fun conversations and give you guys something fun and entertaining to listen to. So please consider following our show here on YouTube, but go check out Sofia's work. You're going to want to check out the Low End Theory. And like I said, those links are right down below. So don't sleep on those. Give them a click and give them a watch and a follow. And yeah, it helps out more than we can ever tell you guys. If you guys do those things, when you click the buttons, you do the likes, you do the follows. So on that note, thank you to everyone for listening and or watching. Sofia, thank you so much for being on the show. And to the entire audience, may the force be with you as you continue to live long and prosper. Goodbye.
Bye.
Copyright 2025 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.